A session, in the end, is just an ongoing connection between a client, so a browser, and a server. And ongoing also means that it persists and lives on even if the browser is closed in between, even if the computer is shut down. So a session is a long-term relation between client and server, but it can be cleared and deleted and reset. So it's not forever, but it is long-living. And we as a developer will be able to decide how long it will live. Now, sessions are about storing data, about storing information. And data stored in a session persists as long as the session is active or until that data is cleared. Now, a typical example for data that could be stored in a session would be the user authentication status. And that's what we already saw in action earlier in the course. We, of course, already used the admin dashboard, and for that we had to log in. We logged in with our super user account, which we created with the manage.py file. Now, the information that we are logged in thereafter is then stored in a session, which has the effect that if we reload the browser page, for example, we don't have to log in again, but instead we stay logged in. Without a session, we would have to log in again whenever we close the browser or even reload the page. So that is where we already indirectly used sessions without writing any session-specific code. So sessions therefore are this client-server relation. And technically, they work like this. The server, so our Django application running on a server, stores the session data and a unique session identifier, because multiple users of the same website will have multiple sessions. Every user has his or her own session. So every session for the different users has its own identifier, and the server stores the session-specific data and identifier, typically in a database, but it could be any session storage, for example, also a file. Now the client, so the browser, stores a cookie, which is sent by the server, which contains that session identifier. So with that, the client is then able, in the future, for future requests, to send that cookie to the server. The server can then look up that session in a database and send that session-specific data back to the client or do whatever needs to be done with that session data. If the session data, for example, contains the information that this client is logged in already, the server may grant access to protected resources. That's the idea behind a session. Now, the good news is that Django already does all the heavy lifting for us. Django will already create that cookie, send that cookie to the client. Django will store the session in the database. We, as a developer, just need to configure how this session should behave. So, for example, how long a session should be active. And then we can write data to that session and read data from it, just as we need it. And that's exactly what we're going to do throughout this course section now.